everybody, and welcome back to Long Distance Friends. Today, I have on my long distance friend, Mary Frances. Mary Frances is just a wonderful, wonderful person who I was able to cross paths with at a previous duty station. Both of our families are military families. Mary Frances invited me over to her home one time for dinner. I don't know if you remember this, Mary Frances, but you made us salmon and broccoli and the most delicious, healthy dinner. It was amazing. And I got a close-up look to your family and your family life and the peace that is in your home. And it was so special. I feel like as a military spouse, you have to really take advantage and hold on to the people that you find that are just those gems of people that are going to help get you through. And you were one of those people for me. And so thank you so much for that. Today, Mary Frances is going to talk to us about a lot. As we were preparing for this interview, I realized that I could probably have 3 separate 1-hour conversations with Mary Frances about, one, being a child life specialist, which we will get into, 2, parenting as parenting military kids, resilient military kids, and 3, military marriages. And so whether you are a military spouse or not, this episode is going to be so beneficial for you because you're going to learn a lot about raising resilient kids and resilient marriages in your home. And so, Mary Frances, thank you so much for joining
I'm so
today.
excited to be here. This is so fun to get to converse with each other again over long distance, but always friends.
Yes, 100%. So, Mary Frances, you are a child life specialist. And so, will you tell me what is a child life specialist? Because I didn't know until a couple days ago when I had to Google it. I was like, what is a child life specialist and why are they so awesome? So will you break that down for anyone who's never heard that term before, and why are child life specialists so important?
Yes, it is the greatest profession that you have never heard of, because it is yes. It's not often spoken of. Often the people who know about child life are medical professionals themselves, usually in a children's hospital, which is it's a small minority, or someone who has gone to the hospital or gone through a medical procedure and had the benefit of meeting a child life specialist. Otherwise, you probably have never heard of us. So currently I am a stay-at-home mom, but my previous career was in child life. And basically what child life specialists do is we're trained child development professionals who basically come alongside children and families and help them cope with a stressful situation that's as a result of illness, disability, injury, or hospitalization, and really helping them build some coping skills to get through that challenge, whatever that challenge may be, in order to so that it will not impact their normal development in a negative way. So, stress and trauma can really damage children's resilience. It can damage their psychosocial health. It can damage mental health. And so part of what our job was to let the medical professionals focus on the medical side, and we came in and kind of helped with the psychosocial side, helping them just with that, all the stress that comes with a medical procedure or an illness or anything like I mentioned before. So we would just come alongside them and build those kind of their coping toolbox through 2 main things. We would do education, which, there's all kinds of little facets under that, but we would provide information that was at their developmental level, and we would do play. So helping bring normalcy to their lives, because they're kids and their job is to play. That's how they learn about the world. And so we use play to just do normal activities, be a kid, but also to incorporate medical play or therapeutic play, where they're able to go a little bit deeper, have a better understanding of what's going on, what they need to do, what's about to happen, or what their body is going through. And they're able to learn more about it from someone who is trained to speak at their level and with phrases or words that are very specific to helping them understand what it is that they need to go through. And then also just kind of using play to bring normalcy to their lives and not allow that stress or anxiety to kind of keep going up and up and up, but allowing that release that they kind of need for healthy development.
Wow, that's beautiful. So are you just in a hospital setting or do you also come to the family's home?
That's a great question. Both. I personally worked in a hospital setting. I would say the majority of child life specialists work in, I would say, even at a children's hospital or a children's clinic, outpatient clinics. They do, when I did end up stepping away from that career to stay at home with my children, more and more child life specialists were going into dentist's office or adult units to work with the children of adult patients. There were also private practice child life specialists who can be hired to go into the home and do the same things just at the child's home, especially if children have a chronic illness or something like that, where they're going to be going to the medical setting, the hospital, or a clinic over and over the course of months or years. Sometimes child life specialists will go into schools and kind of go into the classroom of a child who maybe was recently diagnosed with cancer, and they would go and they would provide a similar little presentation like education, play, here's how you can support your classmate, here's how you can cope yourself with this hard news that your classmate has a sickness or something. So there's a lot of different little facets of where child life can go, but for the majority, it's often in a hospital setting.
Wow, that is awesome. I had no idea that even existed. Yeah. Is that just becoming more and more of a thing?
It is growing, and I will say there is so much room for growth, and I really hope that the benefits of child life just explode eventually, because children's hospitals, the doctors and nurses love child life, and they do actually make it worth it financially. They can help save money on anesthesia or sedation medication for kids because they've learned coping skills. They don't have to be sedated. They can hold still and they understand what needs to be done. So there is that benefit of child life, but the knowledge of child life is still very narrow to basically those settings. And I know a couple of, child life specialists in my past were like on fire to kind of get grants to go into new places, go into adult hospitals, go into all these. And I'm like, please do that. That would be incredible for it to be a household name, to have child life, just, a nurse or a social worker or something like that, to have a child life specialist, to be just part of every child's healthcare journey would be incredible. But at this point, it is not the case.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is actually kind of timely because just yesterday, my 3-year-old was complaining to me about it hurting when she pees. And I was like, oh no, does she have a UTI? And so, of course, I texted my mom group and I was like, what do I do? Yes. My 3-year-old has a UTI. And a couple of the people who were nurses were like, hey, maybe wait and don't take her in because she could be catheterized and you don't want to traumatize her when it's not necessary. Yeah. Maybe she doesn't, maybe it's nothing and it'll go away. And so just yesterday, I was already faced with that pro and con, having to weigh that out of like, is this something that's worth potentially traumatizing my kid and having a poor medical experience versus just letting it play out? And how cool would it be to know that there could be someone there to help walk her through that in a way that she could understand and digest if something like that were to happen. And also for me, I need to learn, how do I talk to my kids? Because she was like, am I going to get a shot? Am I going to get a shot? And I was like, nope. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, well, you might be getting something worse, something worse than a shot. Yeah. But just yesterday. It's crazy how relevant that is.
So relevant. And my daughter recently has had some issues like swallowing, and so we went to an ENT doctor, and she's going to have a tonsillectomy. She's going to get her tonsils out this summer. And so I'm like, okay, well, I get to do a little prep for a one-day surgery probably. So it's just, it's so helpful for parents to have just the understanding of like, how do I talk to my kids about hard things? How do I talk to my kids about what they're going to
Yes.
experience? Doctors, dentists, people that are helping them, but it can be a scary environment. And so
Ah,
how we can best prep them for that so that A, they're not traumatized, and B, they have the resilience and the coping skills to handle that challenge. So yeah,
wow.
it's a fun job as a parent to be the one to do that, because I with my background, am like, should I tell her this? Should I hold that back? Should I wait till right before? Should I go ahead and prep her? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's this whole range of age, like what details do you offer and what do you kind of hold and then let them speak it to them as they're experiencing it, kind of thing, which, because you want to
Right.
be truthful. I'm a huge advocate of
Exactly.
being truth telling
Yes.
to our children. You want to have an honest
Yeah.
conversation, but you do need to keep their age in
Yes.
mind so that they do not, or just so that you're giving the right information at the right time. So it's
Yeah.
tricky. It's tricky. It's always case by case because every child is different and every one of them has a different temperament, and they can handle certain
Mm-hmm.
details the same way or different in different ways. So it's tricky.
Yeah, it is tricky. That is something that is a huge value to me. I've just discovered as I parent is I want my daughter to trust me. And
Yes.
so that
Yep.
means when I say something, I mean it. I say what I mean and I mean what I say.
Yep.
And so in order to build that trust, I have to tell the truth even when it's
Mm-hmm.
hard because I want her to be able to trust that I mean what I say, right? And so that comes in with, hey, 5 more minutes, right? Like following through on that, but that also comes through with big decisions like, no, we are not going to do this or we are going to do this. But then when you tell them you are going to be okay or it is not going to
Mm-hmm.
hurt, then they're going to trust
Yes.
you because in the
Yes.
situations when it was going to hurt, you were
Yes.
truthful, right?
Oh, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. You want your children to know that when they ask you a question, what you're telling them is the truth, or at
yes,
least
exactly.
honest. Again, you just have to know what's appropriate to share, but they
Mm-hmm.
know that if they come to you with a question, you will answer them truthfully.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, Mary Frances, what are a couple tips and ways that we can practice medical play in our homes?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's pretty simple, I would say. Books. I love checking books out of the library or
Mm.
having books. I have a couple right here, like I showed you. Curious George goes to the dentist. Okay,
Okay.
and then I also like medical play or doctor's kits. Most kids, gratefully, do not have some huge scary thing that they have to go to the hospital for in everyday
Mm-hmm.
life. So I'm thinking like checkups, and I'm thinking dentist office, and in my mind, if you can kind of read a book that kind of goes through this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and as you're reading the book, knowing kind of like what, telling them, and when you go, this is what you're going to see at this office if you've been there before. Obviously, it can be a little tricky if you've never been there before, but I will often say things like, we're going to walk in, you get to push the button to go up to the elevator, and we'll walk in, and you're going to see the waiting area has this toy, and then when we get called back by the nurse, you get to get your height and your weight checks. So you get to stand on this little cool thing, and it's gonna beep. And when you beep, you get to jump off. So like you try to tell them what to expect so they get the information, and then also incorporating some little fun elements to it. Because one of the biggest things that, at least in my mind, is we're advocating for our children to have choices when they're in a setting often where they don't get to choose things. And so
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah.
so if you can incorporate ways where kids get to make a choice or be in control of some little element, then it increases their typically it increases cooperation. So, you're saying you're going to step on the scale and you have to wait for it to beep, but as soon as it beeps, do you want to jump off like a dinosaur, or do you want to jump and twirl in the air? So
Mm.
you're adding incorporating these little kid-like fun things that they get to do to a give them something to look forward to. They still have to stand on the scale, but what do they get to do afterwards? Something they get to choose. lot of times in medical play, it's interesting because the medical play I did in the hospital often involved like IVs, but you don't really have IVs at home, or bandages because they're going. I usually incorporate whatever they're gonna see or use or come home with. I try to do some kind of playtime with that before they go to that doctor's office. So for a checkup, they typically don't come home with a bandage, or they don't come home from the dentist's office with something on their mouth. But we can do things like grab your favorite stuffed animal and you get to be the dentist. And so what will you do?
Yeah.
And what do you want to do? If this is the person that's going to sit in the chair and you're going to clean their teeth, let's do it. What do you want to do? And you kind of put the control in their hands. And then when they go to the dentist's office, they're usually able to be like, oh, I did this to my stuffed animal, and again, it's not as big of a deal. You're not, I would say that children often pick up very much on the anxiety levels of their parents, and so if a parent is going, all right, you get to go to the dentist, and it's, if you're all like, ooh, I hated the dentist, and you're like doing this to your children, they're gonna freak out, or naturally they're gonna be like, I don't want to go. But if you're like, we get to go to the dentist, of course the dentist is kind of weird, there's someone in your mouth and that's just weird. I'm all about truth telling, but you don't have to be like, it's weird, but you just say matter of factly, this is what's going to happen. The doctor's gonna open your mouth, count your teeth, and let's see how many teeth you have. Again, speaking the truth, but kind of adding some elements of fun and normalizing it so that it is not this hugely weird thing. Oh, it's just what we do. This is what humans do. Everybody goes to the dentist and everyone gets their teeth counted, and we all go to get our teeth cleaned. And if there's a cavity, I'm so glad we went to the dentist, because now we know we get to fix the cavity, and so your teeth are healthy. Always like doing those explanations to put a positive light on why we go to the dentist and why they're helpful for us and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, just yesterday when we were going to the urgent care, I was just talking with Emmy in the backseat, my 3-year-old, and I was like, aren't we so lucky that there are helpers in the world that can help us when our bodies are sick? Your body is saying, help me, I need some medicine. And aren't we so lucky that there are people out there, that there are helpers out there that can help us?
That's awesome.
And so just reframing that in their brains. And also it's just human psychology to want to know what's going to happen to you. Adults.
I can handle something so much better if I know what to expect. And children are exactly the same way.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. By the way, there's a really good Miss Rachel episode about going to the pediatrician. I don't know if you've seen it. It's amazing.
Haven't, but link it, because I think those things are excellent for showing kids, giving them kind of a picture of what to expect too.
Okay, one more question before we move on to the next topic. But I do want to ask you, are there things that we should know as moms going into those healthcare situations, or especially in emergent healthcare situations, where we can better advocate for our kids' experience? Are we able to request a child life specialist? Or I guess, like, how can we better advocate in those situations as mamas?
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely important, I think, because as parents, we are our child's biggest advocate. And so the medical professional, they are the expert in the medical thing. And you, as a parent, are an expert in your child. So it's a balance. It's like a coming together of you, the expert as of your child, them, the expert of the medical thing. I think there's a temptation to be like, well, I read this, so I think we should do this. But again, knowing that they come from a whole background of, schooling and experience themselves, figuring out how to ask or talk to them in a way that is obviously respectful, but you are still curious about something and you're asking with curiosity. One of my favorite questions to ask is I kind of just look them in the eye and say, hey, if this was your son or your daughter, or if they're an older professional, if this was your grandchild, what would you do in this situation? And just trying to get to that, I want all that medical knowledge, but I also want that personal element of this is what I would do for my person. Because I can totally understand that medical professionals have a whole list of patients they're going to see. And, it is a lot of work and it's a lot of care. And so there can be some, care fatigue. And so if I can remind them through an advocacy question, through a soft, respectfully asked question, what would you do if this was your son? What would you do if this was your daughter? I think you can kind of get back to that personal level with them if you're feeling like they're just kind of there to check you off kind of thing. So I definitely think advocating for our children is a way to speak up. And they might be like, okay, here's the plan, here's what we're gonna do. And that's when I would say, if you're like, I'm not sure, is this the only option? Could be another question to ask. Is this the only option for this thing, or have you heard of anything else that might work? Is there anything that you've heard of or read that we could try before we tried this thing? But you're really trying to respect their knowledge and their medical schooling because they have been through so much, while also you being the expert for your child and your family, bringing that kind of into the equation through your advocacy. So I think that's really helpful. That's a great really question.
Good. Yeah. Just having that winsome attitude. Right. We're in this together. I trust you. I respect you. And just all being on the same team. You don't have to be adversaries with your healthcare provider. And if you are starting to feel that way, there's some things that you can do with your questions and with your language and even with your body language, I'm sure.
Yeah. And
that helps change the environment in the room, right?
And approaching it with curiosity as opposed to just, I know what I want to do and this is what we're going to do kind of thing.
Oh, that's so good. Okay. So I want to transition to being a military family. Yes. There's so much here. You were the perfect person to talk to about this. I'm so excited. I have so much to learn from you. So
I have a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn, and I'm not an expert. I feel like it's so fluid. Parenting is so fluid, and everything is so fluid. So it really is just, you do the best you can with what you read and what you listen to. But I want to hear from you too about some of your parenting tips because the more the merrier, right? I need to fill my parenting toolbox just like any other parent does.
We all need each other, right? Your husband's a chaplain in the Army, and your family often deals with hard realities, on a daily basis because you're coming around and supporting soldiers and by extension their family through some really tough things. And so you have not only had to handle this in your family with your kids, but you have also had the opportunity to lead other families in this as well. And how do we have these hard conversations with our kids about what they're seeing or their dad's experiencing or something that they've been through as a family? And doing so in a way that, like you said, builds resilience in our kids and gives them the coping tools to handle hard information or to handle hard transitions. And so there's so much here. I want to rewind to the parenting class that you did. What did you teach in that parenting class? Can we start with that? I would love to just know what you were teaching other military families.
Yes. So we did get to lead a little parenting class. Thankfully, the military often has some resources for soldiers and families to do marriage retreats, and we got to do a parenting class. It was kind of like a parenting 101 class. So it was just very broad things that were just helpful reminders for how we raise our children and to raise them intentionally. I called it purposeful parenting, to build our purposeful parenting skills, because I think if we are just going to react to everything, then we just might not be giving children our best, because if we're reactionary, it can be a lot more emotion-based rather than logic-based, if that makes sense.
Sure. And how scary for a kid to just feel like life is happening to their family and their parents and that no one's in control, right?
Yes. Stability, predictability, that's one of the things that we'll kind of get to. But if you zoom out and you look at the bigger picture, we all want our children to be raised in a loving environment, right? We want our children to know they're loved, that they belong. And then we also want our children to be good citizens. As they grow up, we want to look back and be like, we raised them well. And so what are some ways that we can do that as parents and be purposeful about that? And so the first one is empathy, which is incredibly important when you have an illogical child, a child who does not know what they're talking about. And so I could either be like, well, you do not know what you're talking about, and immediately go to criticism or whatever it is. But if I can choose to connect with them and empathize first before we get to the logic, if I can have a foundation of empathy in our home, I think children respond incredibly well to that. So the 2-year-old is sobbing on the floor because they can't have a cheese stick when I have, another snack offered. Instead of just being like, what is wrong with you? I have so many options that I've offered you. You just want the thing you can't have. Rather than going that route, you start with, I can see that you're upset, or I understand that you really want the cheese stick. You're just starting with empathy before you go into but here's why we're not, or we're just not going to do it this time. You may not even have a reason, and that's okay as a parent because you're the boss, the loving boss. All of these purposeful parenting tips fall under the umbrella of what's called warm authority parenting. Another word for it is authoritative, which is not authoritarian. Authoritarian is the my way or the highway, but it's also not the enabling parent or the permissive parent, which children can do kind of anything they want. It's like right in the middle where children, it's both and. Children are 100% loved, nurtured, and then they're also 100% under their parents' authority, which as they get older, they earn the privileges of making their more decisions. That's something to look forward to when they get older, is that they can have less and less of mom and dad telling them what they need to do, but they get to kind of make more decisions themselves. So empathy first. You start with empathy. And then second would be setting limits. You do need to set limits as a parent. That's part of our calling as parents, is our children are learning and growing. Their brains are under construction for a long time, and they need the guidance of a parent to set boundaries for them and to be consistent with those boundaries. Children need boundaries that are fair boundaries, and we have to follow through as parents with them consistently. And I'm definitely preaching to myself because I am a flawed parent, and so as I'm saying these things, my family does not follow these perfectly, but it's like I know it in the back of my head, but sometimes in the heat of the moment it doesn't always happen. So anyway,
I resonate with that. You are not alone.
Oh my goodness, it's crazy what toddlers will do to your brain sometimes. I'm sure you can you pick up on that too, Anna.
Yep.
Anyway, so then the next one would be to provide routine and family traditions for your children, and have that in your family.
So good. Yes.
Just that's your family fabric, is that children do very well with routine and rhythms, and it doesn't have to be, by the clock. It doesn't have to be certain times, but just like, here's what we do typically through the day, or we always have dinner together, and that's when we kind of talk about our day. We do bedtime routines are often very helpful for younger kids, especially if they're kind of the same thing over and over. So just bringing kind of some predictability to our kids can really help. And in the military, that can be very hard because you don't know if the soldier is going to be there that day or not going to be there that day, or if they're going to be working late or not working late, or so it can be really tough. But doing everything you can to create some kind of predictability in some manner, whether that soldier is there or not. And it just kind of depends on each family to kind of come up with what those could be.
Yeah. What are some things that you do?
So I grew up doing this myself, so it's very nostalgic for me. But every Sunday night, this is more like a family tradition rather than a routine thing, but a family tradition that we do is every Sunday night if we're home. We have a snacky dinner and we watch America's Funniest Home Videos because
yeah. Wow, that is
isn't it so
nostalgic.
nostalgic? I remember like
Yeah.
we would get home from church in the evening. Growing up, my church had 2 services, one in the morning, one in the evening. So we'd get home from church and my mom would get the sheet out and we'd put it on the living room floor because of course you don't want to, get crumbs on the rug. So she put the sheet out and we'd get all plates and get popcorn and apple slices and cheese and whatever and go sit down and watch America's Funniest Home Videos. Of course, it came on at a certain time because it was TV and not streamed. But
right. Yeah. That was us in Wheel of Fortune.
yeah.
Yeah.
See those like nostalgic shows like
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Yes. It just felt like this is what our family does. It gives kids like a sense of belonging. Like I am part of that family. I am part of my family because we do this all the time and this is what I love. And so, yeah, I feel like that's really important to being purposeful as a parent, to try to have these specific rhythms or traditions. And as a military spouse, I would say you keep doing the tradition whether your soldier is there or not. And that's just the way it is. And you're very open about it. You're like, Dad's on a work trip, so it's just going to be us. Or it's Dad's home. He gets to join in the fun. And just kind of, we just keep doing our thing as best we can. So.
Yeah, that's one. Well, I am like a routine rhythm person. Our routine is the backbone of my family. And it's not just for my kids. It's for me. I need a break in the middle of my, like our quiet time is essential for my stability, my mental health. They thrive on it. And so that number one. But then one thing that I am learning is this is fresh. Okay. So this is like a real life update.
Yay.
I feel like in the Army, they're working late a lot, right? So what I have historically tried to do is I'm like, oh, family dinners are important. So I'm going to wait as long as I can until Nate's able to come home and join us for family dinner. I am realizing that I actually think it's more important for us to have dinner regularly at the same time. And if Nate is able to come and join us, he can. And if he's not, he's not. I don't know. Maybe that's a hot take.
No, I think.
But I feel like it's just healthier for me because if I'm like waiting around for him to get home, like looking at my watch, like where is he? He's working late again. That is a tricky rabbit hole for my brain. But if I'm like, no, dinner's at 6, we're having dinner at 6. And like you said, carrying that tradition, if he's home, he's home. If he's not, he'll get home later. He can do bath time, right? So I don't know. I feel like that has been a positive shift, but that's also fresh. Yeah. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I would. I mean, granted, if he said I'll be home in 30 minutes, I would probably wait 30 minutes. But I would say if you don't know, you haven't heard from him, or it's going to be much later, then stick to the routine and have dinner. And like you said, I think that's great. Have him do bath time or read a book to them before bed. Have something where if he's not at family dinner, but he is coming home, and the girls will see him, this is what you'll do when Daddy gets home. And so, I think I would probably do that as well. I know, my husband will often text when he's on his way home. And if I don't hear by a certain time, we just go ahead and have dinner.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like that's one of the hardest things for me. And you may think or feel differently, but I feel like one of the hardest things is not necessarily when they're gone, because when they're gone, it's like, all right, I'm locked in, I'm loaded, I run this ship. But when they're not gone, but they're gone anyways. Like you're not deployed, but you're still gone.
Yes. The lack of predictability, which is really hard on our brains, I think.
Yes. That's been a learning curve for me. I think that's the hardest part, is because I don't know how to set my expectations. Like expectations getting crushed, whereas when they're gone, there's no expectations.
Yes, exactly. You get to run it. You get to have dinner when you want. You can put him to bed whatever time you want. Do you have any other traditions that you guys do?
Yes. So our daily routine is pretty locked in, and it's been this way since our first was born. But my girls sleep 8 to 8 at night. And then in the middle of the day from 1 to 3:30 is their quiet time. And that's when I do the podcast, right? So that's amazing for
Yeah.
me because I can have my passion project. I can have the thing that fills my cup. And on days when I'm not working on this, I can
Yes.
rest and recharge or whatever. So that's amazing. That's just our daily thing. But then weekly, we started doing Saturday mornings. We will go down to the waterfront and grab a coffee and go on a walk
love that.
and get a donut.
Yay.
And so that's just been
Yes.
just like the perfect little adventure. I think weekends are a little tricky when they're gone too, because that's usually the time when they're the most
Yes.
here.
Yes.
And so that void is the most felt. But yeah, having that Saturday morning tradition really helps us get out of the rut
Yeah.
and out of the house. And then, of course, church and small group, like doing those things even without him, showing up with both kids in tow and allowing yourself to get that help from your community, right? Like showing up and being like, all right,
I know.
someone play with my kids.
Let me eat dinner without them right now. Oh, quiet time. Praise the Lord. I love quiet time so much. To recharge, like you said, and it's like even when they stop napping, to have that rhythm of you go up to this room or the playroom and you have that quiet time. It's good for me. It's good for you to learn how to do things independently. It's like quiet time. I sing its praises to any new mom. I'm like, after nap time, just keep going. It stays.
Yes.
Keep it rolling, as you know, until they go to kindergarten. You know, it's there.
Yeah.
We need it. They need it.
Yep. It is not my business. It is not my business if you sleep or not. That is up to you.
Does not matter. Read some books. Play.
That is your business, child.
You play. It's fine. Just stay in the room. Give mama some time to recharge. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not alone in my quiet time, love.
It's one of my favorite things to just, you know, if there's a new mom, I'm like, just let me tell you, nap time does not end. That time is for you, if at all possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so you were saying holding that balance between not permissive parenting, not authoritarian parenting, but firm and loving, empathetic and holding boundaries, and then also keeping your rhythm in your family, keeping your routines. Did you have anything else that you wanted to hit on?
I think, like I kind of mentioned this back when talking about children in the hospital needing choices to kind of feel like they have a sense of control, and I think that's applicable to children in our homes too, to help them feel like they're part of the family. It's not just do this, do this, do this, do this. It's when there's an opportunity to give our children choices, let them kind of have those choices. We have a free afternoon. Would you like to do this or this? Instead of being like, we're going here. Yeah. Or if you have leftovers or you're trying to think of what's for dinner, you can involve your kids in being like, I was thinking about having noodles one night and chicken and rice another night. What would you guys like for the third night? Or well, should we have this or this for dinner? I'm just giving them some kind of like, you're part of the family. You get to have a say in the things that they do get to have a say, or it doesn't really matter if they have a say. Obviously, making the rules and stuff like that is for parents, but older kids, as they get older, can help you. What do you think would be fair? You know, this happened, and what do you think would be fair, a fair boundary as they get older? So I'm not quite in that stage because my children are still pretty young. So, but for any older parents out there who are like, you know, ask your kids what they think is fair if they break a rule. And help them, let them help you come up with what's a fair consequence for it. And then they feel part of the family, and they know what the consequence will be if they break it.
Valuing their opinions and their preferences. Yeah. Showing them that you care what they think. Yeah. Love that.
Yep.
Are you willing to share a time when you had to have a hard conversation about whether it be your spouse leaving or your spouse coming home, and like how did you apply those child life specialist skills in that scenario, in creating here's what to expect, here's what's exactly going to be happening, here's what we're going to do about it? Do you have an example of that?
I think I mean many military families experience absences because their soldier has to go to training or has to be at work for a long day or has a deployment. And so when I talk to my kids about something upcoming, let's say it's a deployment or just, you know, a week or two away for training, I am always again, I'm a huge advocate of truth telling and being honest. And so I may not be
Yeah.
specific in what they're going to do because, obviously
Sure.
that might not be information I have, but I can say, dad's going on a work trip and don't know how long he's going to be gone, or
Yeah.
we do know how long he's going to be gone. But telling what I know at their level so that they can understand. And I also really, yes, it makes me sad that my husband is not going to be there, but I'm not going to speak to them and be like, I'm so worried, I'm like so scared about this,
No, right.
because even if I do have fears or I am worried, I do not want my children to have those, right? They don't need to carry that burden. That can be a burden for
that's
me
too
to
much for them
bear.
to carry.
Yes. And so I'm like, keep it matter of fact, talk calmly. I can say that I'm feeling sad about it. And I think that is important to be like, I'm feeling sad that dad's going on a work trip, but I'm not going to, kind of get to the hysterical part or get to the super anxious part where they're now carrying that burden too. But
right. That is for another, that's for another
Yes.
adult to help mama
Yes.
process.
Those are friends.
Yeah. Mama's going to, yeah. Mama's
Yes.
going to get support from other grown-ups, and mama's going to be okay. But mama is sad, right? And mama is feeling sad today, but I have support and I'll be okay.
And kind of modeling those positive coping skills that I have. I'm feeling sad about this, so I'm going to go have a coffee date with my friend and I'm going to talk with her about it.
Aww.
And you guys get to play, and then, you just kind of like speak through what you're doing to help you cope. Again, not putting on those feelings on your child, but just modeling healthy ways to handle a hard situation or something stressful or something sudden or out of the blue. Our kids are always learning and always observing, and they're very, very, very perceptive. Young children are very perceptive and can easily pick up maybe not the situation, but the mood and some kind of whether it's good, bad. And so if we're able to be the one to approach that hard conversation and come to them, that builds trust between parents and children, is being their first voice. They may hear something, they might hear something at school, and I'm kind of like taking this to hard conversations in general, not just like husband leaving, but let's say they hear something at school, but knowing like they can come home and they ask you, and they know that you will be the one to tell them more about it, and you'll be the one that kind of helps shape their perspective on that subject, whatever it is. And so I think it's really important for us to take opportunities to go deeper in conversations with our children, maybe even more than they intended. So for example, my daughter came home one day from school and was like, "What's a half sister?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well we can." So I answered matter of factly, "Here's what it is," but we got to go in and talk about blended families, and we got to talk about, I kept it short and simple, but I was like, we got to talk about blended families. We got to talk about divorce, and then I also got to talk to her reassurance of, my husband and our commitment to each other. You're able to kind of like talk through those hard things truthfully, but then offer the reassurance that our family is, strong and they don't have to worry about that for our family.
Whenever they're discovering something new about the world, being able to explain that to them, but also, like you said, like using that as a reminder to remind them that they're on solid ground and they have a firm foundation.
That's a great way to put that. Yeah. And just, I would offer the advice to just when you see that open door invitation to go deeper in a conversation, to take it. Or if it's not a good time, bring it back up another time. You can be like, "Hey, I want to talk more about this, but right now we're in the middle of the grocery store and I need to grab, blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about it in the car on the way home." And then you bring back up the subject and be like, "Hey, remember when you asked about what a half sister was? Well, here," and then that's when you can kind of go into the more deeper things. But I think it's just to build trust between us and our kids, parents and children, is so important. And so being that first voice that helps them shape their perspective of what these things are, these deeper things are hard things are. It's kind of like, it reminds me like how God has promised us not that we're going to have an easy life, but that he's going to walk with us through life, whatever it brings. And it's like we are that for our children. And we cannot promise that they will have an easy life, or we can't always have these easy conversations either. But when something does come up, they know that we are the ones that can help walk them through it, or just we are the ones that will walk them through it. We have to take that initiative to be like, oh, they saw this at school, or they saw this on the news. And so rather than just being like, oh, I hope they didn't really hear that, it's like, hey, did you hear that on the news? And they say yes, then that's take the opportunity to talk about it and truthfully explain it, while also again having that reassurance of their feelings and what is true for, you know, their situation, if it applies or does not apply to them currently.
That's really good, because I feel like I don't think to pair the two like that. I feel like a lot of times when I get in those moments, and this is just now starting to happen to me more and more because my daughter's 3, so I don't have tons of those experiences yet. But when stuff has come up, I'm so focused on telling the truth and like, how do I explain this? But that's a beautiful reminder to bookend that with the assurance and the comfort and the sturdiness that they can lean on. And then showing them, obviously, that you're not afraid of those conversations and that they can come to you.
And I know there's a lot more that goes into resilience, but I really think having the hard conversations and being that trusted parent that they can come to you about anything, and having that warm authority parenting foundation, it's pushing kids in the right track of resilience.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What is resilience?
That's a great question. It's like asking what is love, you know? I think that resilience is just this inner strength of being able to face challenges and get through them in a healthy way. Again, we're not promised to never have challenges in our lives. We are going to have challenges in our lives. And I think it's important to tell our children that you are going to have a hard time in life with certain things. I don't know what they will be. I don't know what situations are going to come up, but we are going to have challenges. We are going to have to do hard things. We are going to have to handle things. Being able to talk with our children about that and giving them those expectations that life can be hard and we can do it. We can get through it together because you're strong inside. You have people around you who can support you. You can ask for help. In our being a Christian, God who is there, who promises to walk through those challenges with us. We have God that we can talk to and lean on and support, who provides support for us. Raising resilient children it's tricky, but I think it just comes with truthfulness and honesty and sharing those expectations that life will be hard and that we can do it and we can get through it together.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, I feel like we need to end it there. Mary Frances, thank you so much for not only just sharing all of your expertise with us, but sharing your real life family examples. It's just so helpful. I know so many mamas are going to just feel less alone and more empowered from everything that you've shared today. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I, again, like all of this, I am preaching to myself because when we're in it, it is hard, and it is hard to remember, the logical part of parenting. It's easy to just kind of go and be like, whoa. But I do feel as a military spouse, but also as a mom, there's just this innate, we are there for our children and we want to do what's best for them. And I know any parent wants to do what's best for their children. And so kind of having that proactive approach to it as opposed to just reacting to everything is really helpful. So being purposeful in our parenting, especially as military spouses and just parents in general, to be honest. So thank you. It's just so fun I wish you could be sitting on my couch right here. We could keep going. I know. It'd be so fun. But thanks for allowing me to come on.
Oh, anytime. Anytime.